Hello and welcome to Face Off here on France 24. Should job seekers have less benefits? For years, merely asking that question was a taboo for the left. But in just a few days, both the Prime Minister and the Minister of Economy have argued that with the deficit of the unemployment benefits system spiraling out of control, it was now the time to debate. This caused an uproar among their socialist peers and yet another headache for the struggling President François Hollande. This just as France is already under major pressure and possible sanctions from the European Union because its 2015 budget will not respect the deficit ceilings. With me on the set to discuss those two explosive issues, Philippe Turl from Radio France Internationale and Jean-Marc Gonin with the Figaro magazine. So just a few days after the Prime Minister Manuel Valls told a British audience that the generous unemployment benefit system could be reformed in France, he was rebuffed by the French President, François Hollande, who argued that now was not the time. End of story? No. This Sunday, Emmanuel Macron, the economy minister, upped the ante by stating that the current system was unsustainable and that there should be no taboo when it comes to reforming it. This prompted vivid reactions from the socialists against Emmanuel Macron, who's a former investment banker, as well as from the far right, Marine Le Pen. Let's take a listen to some of those reactions.
He did not say he intends to reform our unemployment benefit system. And in a time of economic crisis, we shouldn't change workers' rights.
There aren't any taboos for the left. But we have sacred rules. And the first is that when the French president speaks, his ministers don't contradict him.
He defends the bank's interests, and the bank's interests are completely different to the people's interests.
Jean-Marc Gonin, a flurry of attacks, very tepid defense of Emmanuel Macron, the Élysée Palace saying this debate should take place, but now is not the time. Why is it so sensitive?
It is extremely sensitive because there's a kind of double speech of the French government. I don't think Emmanuel Macron was really addressing the nation, speaking to the political class. He was waving hello to Brussels. There's a very ambiguous situation in that debate. I think Macron and Manuel Valls, the Prime Minister, are under pressure. Well, I don't think they are under pressure from the European Commission. They have to show their budget, as we will discuss later on. So he has to give signals to Brussels, and there is no taboo anymore. He has also to address that deficit of unemployment benefit.
4 billion euros right
4
now.
billion euros, which is a huge sum. On the other hand, it is clear that the socialists won't let this happen. So inside parliament, government, that won't go through. Everyone knows that it won't go through in a short-term delay, but the signals have to be given to Brussels. So I think good cop, bad cop, François Hollande is saying, no, it's out of question. And some members of government say, yes, we are thinking about it. So they are in an extremely ambiguous situation.
Right. Just for our viewers, the system is a complicated one, but it's one that's negotiated every several years between the unions and the corporate world, essentially. And there was recently an agreement on this, but it seems that because of the number of unemployed people, the system is just crumbling. And so, therefore, there needs to be something, but it's difficult for the left to tackle this issue.
Well, as you say, there is a large number of unemployed, and an ever-increasing number of unemployed. Over 3 million is the official figure. Some people say up to 5 million people in France are unemployed. So this would be extremely bad timing on the part of the government to say, well, now we're suddenly going to overhaul the unemployment benefit system, and it's going to be less beneficial for those who are unemployed. But there are those arguing that it's so beneficial that once you get onto it, it doesn't push you to try and find a job afterwards, and you'll stay unemployed for as long as possible, because sometimes you can earn more money out of unemployment benefit than in a low-paid job. And they say that's got to change because it's putting an unnecessary strain on the state and on the state finances, and also the European Union is coming under putting France under increasing pressure to put its books right. And we're now in this very strange situation in France where we've got those who want to push on the accelerator, like Manuel Valls, like Macron, the budget minister, and those who are pushing on the brake, like Comte-Delis, the head of the Socialist Party First Secretary, and President François Hollande, which is sending very mixed signals to the French public over, well, are they going to reform it or not? And if they are going to reform it, when are they going to do so? And I think, as Jean-Marc was saying, all of this is an illustration of the jitters within the French government over this impending budget, which they're trying to negotiate for the European Commission to examine, and the growing threat in France, this budget's not going to be accepted.
Right.
With the present state of the economy, I think it's unthinkable to cut those benefits immediately. Because you have, as you said, there are so many unemployed people right now.
But the system in France is deemed more generous than elsewhere in Europe, so you could maybe amend it.
Yes, but I think
it's a
timing
taboo.
is bad because everyone knows that legions of
stigmatize
new
the
unemployed people are going to be on the dole in the coming months. So, I mean, it will take time. I'm sure they will have to cut it, but right now, I think, the fear of unemployment is so big in this country, and the fear to fall down and have no safety net, that undoing it right now,
especially for a leftist government.
Yes.
But there's something else which is, I think, an underlying factor in this, is that there are those saying, well, as François Hollande is so unpopular and these reforms are necessary, well, why doesn't he just go ahead and push them through? He's got nothing to lose. And I think that is probably what Manuel Valls, the Prime Minister, is thinking, because he knows that if nothing happens, he's going to be dragged down, and is being dragged down by François Hollande in the opinion polls. He'll have no chance of making himself into a potential candidate for election in 2017 if François Hollande is not re-elected as a candidate for the presidential election, because he just will be as unpopular as the president. So he's got to break away now to try to reincarnate himself as someone who's progressive, made reforms, has done the necessary to try and pull France out of its difficult situation. Whereas François Hollande is saying, no, we mustn't do that, because it's going to make me even more unpopular in the opinion polls.
So, as we were saying, this week the French government is presenting its budget for next year to the French Parliament, but also to the European Commission in Brussels. It already announced that the deficit will be at 4.3% of the GDP, despite promises to bring it under the 3% limit set by the EU. This means France could face sanctions. How serious is this threat?
I think it is very serious. The fact that France will be sanctioned is very serious because we have a new European Commission with new powers, and it will be the first time that we'll exert those powers. And if on the first occasion, France is not sanctioned, it will ruin the whole new system.
So you think France will be... Many people think France is too important to fail.
It could be a symbolic sanction. I'm not saying that it's going to be a financial sanction, which could be on the table, but I think they won't go that far. But France will be punished somehow, sanctioned somehow. If we take a metaphor from the soccer, from football, a yellow card, but not a red one.
If you look at the situation as it is, France has already asked for a delay, which it was given for 2 years to get its books in order, to bring down the budget deficit to this symbolic 3% of GDP, which it hasn't managed to do. So it's still over 4%.
But France is saying there's no growth, there's unemployment.
Okay, that's an argument they're putting forward. But the European Commission is going to come back and say, look at the budget you've presented. It's all fine on paper, but when you look at the actual different ways that you are proposing to save money, there are certain holes in there that just don't match up or don't add up. And we want more proof that the budget you're going to present to bring down your deficit to 3%, which is what you've got to do, is going to hold. And at the moment, that budget doesn't hold. Just to give you one example, we had this week the announcement the other day that this famous eco tax on motorways in France was going to be suspended, which is over €1 billion less in French coffers. No one really seems to know where this missing money is going to come from. And that's another question the European Commission is going to ask. Well, if you keep doing this kind of thing and you have these holes in your budget, where are you going to find the extra money? So therefore, your budget doesn't add up. Therefore, we're going to refuse it.
Don't forget that they are cutting. They are cutting. I agree with you that tax will miss in the books. But on the other hand, you have now healthcare healthcare cuts healthcare benefits being cut. You will have child benefits being cut, and it's already it will be a big sum. So the trend, I mean, Europe will judge also by the acts, and this time cuts will be will be in the budget.
Right. And so you think France will be able to find an agreement also because growth is slowing in Germany, as we see now?
Exactly. Germany is having trouble. So the belief of Germany that everything must be done to cut deficits and have your books in order, I think the pressure will not be as hard as it used to be. The central bank is also saying that there must be something to enhance economic growth. The IMF is speaking this way too. So I think the dogma that comes from Germany has to be a bit not as hard as it has been practiced in the last years.
Okay, we'll have to see how the French budget will be judged in Brussels and if France will be punished, but clearly those are very tense days here in France as this debate on the unemployment benefits show. Thank you very much to both of you, and thank you for watching this edition of Face Off here on France 24.